Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today I'm going to share with you how to color metal. That can be really tricky for a beginner because you're looking with elements like shine, texture, color, and it can be quite overwhelming, but we're going to break it down today and make it really easy. I'm also going to share some tips on using limited supplies because I know when you're just starting out, getting a bunch of markers can be quite expensive. So I'm going to show you how to use a few markers with some colored pencils, and you can use whatever brands of either that you have, and show you kind of how to make the most of this. Now, if you don't have alcohol markers, I will be using alcohol markers today, but if you don't have them, you can use your watercolor markers. Just don't do as much blending, and I'll explain that as we go along. Another quick tip I wanted to share with you before we start coloring is how I'm storing my new unmounted stamps from our sponsor, Rubber Stamp Tapestry. You can find everything, all the stamps I'm using today at pegstamps.com. I'll put a coupon code in the video description. It's going to be METAL, so it'll be easy to remember the coupon code METAL for 20% off your purchase of mounted stamps, $10 or more. Now, these unmounted stamps are a steal of a deal. They're $12 a set, so there's no further discounts on these, but I wanted to show you really quick what I do to store them. As I mentioned last week, I trim them and I paint some Aleene's Tack It over and over on the back, and I'll put that in the description too, so you can, if I spoke too fast, you can see what I'm talking about. But what I do is then I just stick them to the back of my packaging. Now, I can either put this on a shelf, I can lay this with my other Rubber Stamp Tapestry peg stamps, or I can put them in binders at this point. So this keeps them nice and safe. I have it on the back side so that I can still see my indexes on the front, and it keeps me organized. So I just wanted to give you that option. Now, another option, if you want to use cling foam, like if I'm in a rush, and I showed you last week how to use cling foam, I just will slide those stamps right in the packaging. So I like this because it keeps packaging out of the landfill, and it keeps you organized. And then you can just get an office supply store binder and slide 2 of these in a page protector, and you can flip through it like a catalog and see what you have. So that's how I store most of my unmounted stamps. These I might just keep on my shelf right next to my peg stamps because they work so well together. But yeah, just wanted to know you had to do that. Do you want to know how to do that? I'll know you how to do that. Oh my goodness. Need practice with words. All right, so we're going to stamp with Memento. And Memento, that's the same little dewdrops that we've been using all along in our stamp school videos. You can use your little dewdrop. I have a big one in black and brown because I find them to be very useful colors. The reason I'm using Memento here is because Memento does not run when I use alcohol markers. Alcohol markers, some different brands are Copic, Pro Marker, Prismacolor, Sharpie, Bic Mark-its. Really use what you have. In fact, if you're just getting started, I recommend that you go and get a package of Sharpies or Bic Mark-its, the biggest package you can get in color, because they're going to be so much cheaper per marker than buying the artist markers. Then go to the store, pick out a few light colors of Pro Markers or Prismacolors or whatever is most affordable near you. They all work well together, so you do not have to go spend $7 or $8 a pop for a Copic marker. It's absolutely unnecessary. And there's some really good brands out there that can be quite a bargain. Just look around where you live and see what you can find inexpensively, because I promise you they will all work well together. So what I've done here is I've stamped out a couple of each of these with my Memento ink, and I did that so that you'd be able to see what I was coloring right next to the a finished one, just so I thought it would be a little bit easier for you. So the first thing I think we'll start off with is shiny metal, and we'll start off with this copper kettle. And when you have a brushed copper kettle like this, you'll see there is not only color and shine, but we have texture. So what I'm going to do now is zoom in so you can see the coloring in detail. Please feel free to make your computer screen, your video player full size so you can really see the detail in this instruction. Please feel free to pause the video as we go along so you can follow along. Don't feel rushed, and really enjoy this. This is your time for enjoyment and relaxation. It's your craft time. Enjoy it. Don't feel rushed. For copper, I want to have a few different shades of color. I like to have a really light, warm, creamish color. This Jasmine by Prismacolor is a wonderful color to start off with, but any sort of like light yellow, light cream color will work well. I'm also going to use a deep reddish brown. This is Burnt Sienna. Same as if you were watercoloring or oil painting. I've got this this henna, which is an even darker reddish brown. Then I've got this mid-tone, which is called caramel, and I have this lighter brown called pale sepia. You don't have to have the exact colors I'm using here, just try to approximate it. And if you don't have this many colors, don't worry, because we can adjust things with colored pencil later. So that's what I really want to show you, is that you don't have to have everything. So the first thing we're going to do is color everything in with jasmine. Now, different markers have different tips. This old-fashioned Prismacolor has a bullet tip, which is what I'm using right now, but it also has a broad tip, and that's kind of like a chisel tip, and I can cover much more space quicker if I use the broad tip. So we're just going to start by base coating, and the reason I'm doing this is because it's going to wet all of this paper, and it's going to make the colors I put down on top blend a lot easier. I'm not using fancy blending cardstock here. I am using cheap 4-cent a sheet Walmart Georgia Pacific cardstock here, okay? Because I wanted to make sure that you guys could follow along at home with whatever you have. If you're using Nina, if you're using blending card, you're going to have a much easier time of it. So I just want to let you know that right off the bat. So the next thing we're going to do is go with our next darkest color. In this case, it's pale sepia, but any sort of kind of warm light brown will be sufficient. So I really have to pay attention to the form, so I want my brush strokes to kind of have a curved feeling as I'm going here. So I actually find it a little bit easier if I turn this to the side like that, and I pull the strokes towards myself. Now this Copic marker I'm using has a brush tip, and I will tell you, for this particular technique of pulling a very light feathered stroke, this is also called feathering here, how I'm doing it, I find the brush tip a little bit easier because I can just very gently caress the paper with the tip of that brush, the brush marker. But if you don't have that, you could still do that. I would recommend using the bullet edge. And I just want to feather it so that I don't have any really harsh lines. Okay, and I keep that brushed look. And then I can turn this around the other way. Okay, do the same thing. Actually, you know what? I think I probably can, the way my wrist wants to go, because I'm right-handed, it's a little bit easier for me to do it from this side, so that's what I'm going to do. Now I'm keeping it open in the center because that's where my brightest highlight's going to be, as you can see right there. This video might be a little long, I'm going to warn you, so don't feel bad if you have to break it up over a couple days to, you know, have time to practice, because that's how you're going to learn. Watching videos is fantastic, but you're not going to really learn that much until you actually put marker to paper. So if you're doing this with your water-based marker, that's fine. You might even want to go like a shade lighter than you think you need in that case. Now for here, since it's such a small space on the spout, I'm just going to kind of make a line down either side. Okay, so that is our second layer. I'm going to keep the paper just like this, and I'm going to go to my next color, which is my next darkest color, which would be the caramel, which is kind of like a reddish brown medium tone. And you can see what we've got there. I am going to do the same thing. I'm going to start pulling out those feathered strokes, but I'm not going to pull them out quite as far. I don't want to cover everything that I've done. I'm just kind of layering up. And don't worry if you don't go out far enough and you have to go back and go over it. Not a big deal. Do that to each side. And just make sure that you do get all along the edge so you don't have any light spots on the side. I find just kind of stippling or tapping my brush in there, tapping my brush tip marker in there does the trick. And I'll be showing you this on one of the other vessels with a bullet tip, so don't worry if you just have bullet tip markers, because that's not a problem. Alright, then we're going to go with our next darkest marker, which is a nice deep burnt sienna. And same deal. Now, the nice thing about going dark to light is that you kind of get a feel for it before it really matters. As you start to get into your darker colors, you kind of it kind of can be a little bit intimidating. So, but don't worry about it. You know, we're working with cheap paper. We don't have to worry about making a mistake. I'll show you how to fix mistakes outside of the lines too. See, teachable moment. I like to keep the teachable moments in. A little bit on the edge there. And don't worry, we're going to soften these lines, so don't worry if they're seem a little harsh to you. And then our final shade is the henna, and this is a bullet tip. I can show you here. It's the and this is, you used to be able, I don't know if you can still get these or not. You used to be able to get these fine tip points that you could add on the top of a pro marker. I'm not sure if they still make those or not, but I'm going to pull off both of those tips. to get in there. I'm actually going to start by continuing my line down there, so I have the edge of the kettle. Same thing. It just doesn't have that flexibility, and it's a little bit harder to adjust your, like, have a wider line going to a narrower line as you go. So that's something to consider if you're thinking about buying markers, if that's an important feature for you. Usually brush tips are a little bit more expensive, but if that's an important feature to you, or an important feature to have in some colors, you can make sure that the markers that you purchase have that. Okay, so now you're probably thinking, Lindsay, that does not look like that. That is really, really too bold. How am I going to soften that? Well, I'm going to show you. And we're going to go back in with our lightest color that we just used, which is this pale sepia, I believe. No, we had a lighter one than that. We had jasmine. That's what we started with. I'm just putting my stuff all over the place. I'm going to go in, and I am going. Whoops! I just want to help if I work on the one we're actually coloring on, right? I'm going to go in and I'm going to blend over. All right, and see, this is adding another depth of color. Just be careful if you're working on cheap cardstock like I am. Don't go too close to the edge, because you might it might bleed out because of the because this is just a cheap cardstock. It's not designed for markers. It's just, you know, office supply store stuff. Okay, so you can blend that. Now, if you feel like you didn't get a good enough gradation, you can go in with some of the other colors and pull some more shadow in towards the center. Always start with your lighter colors. And see how you can really control that. I feel like I want a little bit more of that warmer mid-tone there. I think this is the most difficult one to do, so the other ones are really going to seem quite easy after this. And then to increase the highlight on here, what we're going to do is use a clear blender. And you can find these at any craft store. Prismacolor is at, like, most stores. You can, if you, whoops, that one's not working very well. And I actually like to, this one has a brush tip and a chisel tip, and I actually like to use a chisel tip better for pulling out a highlight. And I'm just going to go in there and color in my lightest area, and this is just going to push my pigment away so I get a nice highlight down the center. It's not going to bleach it pure white with all that marker we have on there, but it is going to give us a nice white highlight. Now, something else I like to do, I'm just going to scribble that off. If I make a mistake, take your chisel edge of your clear blending marker, and you can color this mistake right up to the edge. And on a blending cardstock, it'll go away completely, but even you can see on this cheap cardstock, I was able to remove most of that area, and when it dries and the paper goes back to its normal color, you're not going to see much of a ghosting there. Okay, so this is all well and good. This looks pretty good. This is just markers, but if you want to bring out a little more luminosity, you can actually use your colored pencils with this, and I'm going to show you how to do that. And for this, I want a warm white, so I'm just going to use this kind of like cream ivory color. It's not quite as cool or as bright as like a bright white. And I'm going to go in the center, and you got to make sure that you keep that stroke back and forth, like that slightly curved stroke. I'm going to go in there and add another layer of highlight there. And I can do the same on the spout. And it really starts to bring it together. If you want to add a little more warmth, you can go in with this ochre color. And you can use whatever brand you have. I happen to be using Colorsoft here. I actually chose this set here because it doesn't have too many colors, so it'll fit on my table. I can go over that highlight in the middle if I want. And then I can even add a richer brown on the edge, like this dark terracotta. But you don't have to do this if you're happy with how your marker is, but it's really handy if you don't have a lot of supplies, because you can really make the most of what you have. Now, I would warn you, it's not a great idea to go over your pencil with marker. Again, once you put that pencil down, you should really pretty much leave it, because it can clog. The wax from your pencils can kind of melt when you put the marker on top, and it could get into your marker nib and clog them, and your markers can get kind of expensive, so you want to make sure that your colored pencil is the last layer that you do. Alright, and so now we have some lovely form, and we have a beautiful copper kettle. And what I did here was I just used some of my peg stamps, and I'll just show you. We can stamp a few of the Christmas stamps in there. I'm going to use a couple shades of brown for my pine cones. I think I'll do my pine cones in there first, even though they're a little smaller than the sprigs, because I want to make sure they all stand out. Actually, I think I'll just use this nice warm brown. And then I will do some of these pine sprigs. I love this this pine cone bouquet. It's so pretty. I'll link all these down below so you can see exactly what I used. I'm going to use a couple shades of green. And going first with my lighter one, then just kind of grab a little of the darker ink. Oh, and what I like to do here is I just cut a little curved post-it note. I'll just set that right there to protect my coloring on that. And I'm going to stamp that a few times. Try to get around my little pine cone so I don't cover up those pretty things. And we can go in even with our pencils and fill in. So if I said, oh, I don't like that white area down there, I'm going to grab my colored pencil in a nice dark green, and I can just go right in there and fill that out. Or I could do that with my marker. But colored pencils are so great for adjusting values and just like kind of touching things up, that I really recommend them, because sometimes with the markers your ink will bleed and you'll be bummed out that you think you messed something out. You don't have to worry about that so much with your markers. And if you want a super duper high highlight, you can go in with your straight white pencil and you can just do kind of scribble back and forth just down the center where it is the brightest. And there you have brushed copper. Okay, the next thing I'm going to show you how to do is, and I probably won't do the stamping inside of each of these because that will take quite a long time. The next one I'm going to show you what to do is the galvanized bucket. So we've got that right here. Very pretty effect. And we are going to use a couple different shades of gray for that. And I'm going to also show you how to do rest. So this one is done in a very similar fashion. I'm going to start with my lightest gray, which is a cold gray 1. And if you don't have all these grays, don't worry about it. You can just color this all with your clear blender. So I'm just going to give this a coat of this color everywhere but the rust. And there's a few places just kind of sketched out where the rust would be, like right there and there. Don't worry if you accidentally go into it. It's not a huge deal with this light color. The next color I'm going to use is going to be Cool Gray 3. If you have it, if not, go to the next closest one. And I am just going to tap. Okay, I'm going to stipple. I'm going to change the direction of the tip of my brush. We're just going to build up that texture that galvanization has. And galvanized things will eventually rust. If you've ever had like a chicken fount or some old metal buckets, you know how like they will eventually rust and have to be replaced. Now this darker color, I'm going to concentrate these stipples around the edge of my bucket. Now if you only had like one gray and one clear blender, what you could do is actually color it with the gray and then go in and just do dots with the clear blender, and that would give you a mottled texture as well. Very similar. Then you could go over it with your pencil. So don't worry, there's a lot of different ways that you can approach this. I'm trying to give you as many ways as I can in this video so that you can go forth and use the supplies you have to get the effect that you want. And these are an investment. I've had these for years. You can re-ink them, and you know, so it's not like you buy them and you throw them away. These are supplies that you want to maintain and you want to keep for the long haul. And this darker one is Cold Gray 7, and it's looking really stark here, but I'm going to show you how to fix that in just a second. So now that we've got these base colors on, I'm going to go in with my Cool Gray 3, and I am just going to try to tap them together a little bit in color. I don't want to have any really bright white areas here. But I want that texture, so I'm not going to just color over it like I did on the copper kettle. Tap, 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 tap. And then I can go over with a clear blender, which I'm sure I'm going to lose about 5 times during this tutorial, just so you know, because I've already misplaced it. Here it is. And I am going to dab with that. And that's really good over the highlight too, because it pushes around that lighter gray and just gives it a little extra texture. So what happens here is when that alcohol from these the clear blender is just the alcohol. So when you tap with that, it's just pushing the pigment away from the place where you just place the alcohol, so it's just giving it that little bit of a texture. It's a great way to do like fish scales or a pebbly texture on like a reptile or something. It's very handy for that. Now for our little for our rust, I'm going to go in with sepia. I'm just going to tap it in there, just color in. I don't want to have any straight lines, so I'm just kind of tapping that in. This one is all about texture. Well, I guess they're all about texture. We're either doing a smooth texture, a rough texture, a brush texture. I really hope you take some time and learn how to do these. I think it's very good to do. And then a lighter brown. I think I'm going to use a chisel edge. Tap a little bit of that in there. And maybe something with a little more red in it, like this burnt sienna that we used earlier. We'll tap a little bit of that in there. You don't have to have the exact same colors I'm using, just to be absolutely clear on that. Okay, so that looks pretty cool just the way it is. I'll bring it up a little bit more so you can see. But to give it even more texture, we're going to go in again with a colored pencil. So I've got a few different shades of colored pencils here. I've got for my highlight, I've got this super light, it's called aqua white. It's basically like a really light gray. And I've got a couple different shades of cool gray here. So I'm going to put in my lightest, just kind of using these X's. I'm just kind of crisscross strokes in my highlight area because I don't want to shine. That's why I'm not using like a bright white, because I don't really want to shine. I just want texture. I'm pressing probably a little too hard because I broke the tip of that pencil. And then I'm going to go into my darkest dark, because I always find it's a little easier if I get those 2 values established. Just choppy. Chop. We do not want smooth here. We want choppy. We want messy, because messy is going to give us that texture that we want. And I'm not coloring so hard that I can't see the illustration underneath. I can totally see that stamped design underneath. And then we'll go in this mid-tone. So it really does fix any mistakes you might have made in the coloring just because of the layers we're putting in. So you do not have to worry about being perfect with this. And then I think that pretty much does it, but I want the rust to be a little bit more pronounced. So I'm going to go in with this rusty colored pencil, and I am going to color it. Add a little bit of that color in there. And then I can add like a little yellow ochre color on top just to give the rest a little bit of a highlight. Now to stamp our tulips in there like I did up top, this was really easy masking. All I did was I took a couple post-it notes. And I could actually show you how to color these flowers, because that's probably going to be really handy if you've never done this before. So I'll do that. I'll show you how to color this, and I'll show you how to stamp that, and you can kind of, I think, determine how to do the other ones from that. So I'm just masking off those 2 edges. So I've got that corner free. And then this stamp is really pretty. This is from, what set is this from? That's from this one right here. That actually has the bucket, which is nice. So if you want to do this little image, you have both stamps to do that with. This one's called Cottage Containers. Really pretty. They're all fantastic. Oh my goodness. $12 really is a bargain for a sheet of red rubber. I like the way red rubber stamps. Okay, so I am going to just line that up. I don't want to stamp into my other one because I'm thinking I might be able to actually salvage these and make cards out of them. What a concept. Okay, so there we have that. Oh, and if you want to stamp any foliage in there, that's a good idea to do right now. And I like that fern stamp. It's one of my favorites from Rubber Stamp Tapestry. And again, those 2 shades of ink that I used before, the Cottage Ivy and the Bamboo Leaves. And because they're memento, they're not going to bleed even if I get ink on them. Just get a couple fronds in there, and that's really all we need. I like how everything is open so that it's really easy to stamp in there. So to color flowers like this, it's not tricky. What I like to do is just look for the highlights and look for the shadows. So the shadows I want to have like inside of my flowers. So I've got this dark orange, this is called vermilion, which is actually kind of like a dark orangey red. So I'm going to put that inside my flower here along the edge of the front petal. We're doing a real fast version of this too. And then I'm going to put just a smidge at the bottom of these. Okay, and making those contrasts between the edges of the petals and the flower that's next to it is what gives you that beautiful three-dimensional look. So then I'm going to go over what I've just colored and bring the color up a little bit. I'm going to do that same thing here and bring it right up to the top. And don't worry if it's not perfect after you're done the marker stage, because we can fix it. Because we are super crafty colorers now, right? We got the skills. We got the mad skills. I'm going to fill in the back of those petals there. Fill in this middle back of the petal there. Bring that color up. And then we're going to go in with a nice light color, like this, a beautiful yellow orange. Whoops, I want the bullet tip. I started off with Prismacolor markers, and the reason I started off with those is because I could find a really good deal on them. And I really enjoyed them. And then my mother got me some Copics for Valentine's one year, because she's so sweet. And I really like those too, but I have to say I don't think my artwork improved with those way more expensive markers. I think that I could do exactly the same thing with the Prismacolors. Sure, it was nice. I mean, they're nicer quality, but I mean, really, you're the artist. The markers do not make you, you make the markers. So there's that. And a little tip, if you don't have a lot of markers, I want to share this tip with you because I think it's really important. So like the shadow under here, the grass, if you don't have 5 shades of green, look at your grays, because your grays will help you. So I can, and this technique is called grisaille, and oil painters have done this for years. We're going to put our shadow in with some gray first, and I'm going to blend that out with some lighter gray. And it's not going to blend that great because I'm using cheap cardstock. I'm sure you guys all have some in your computer desk, so don't give me any excuses. I don't want to hear it. Don't say, Lindsay, I can't make that. I don't have fancy paper. You don't need fancy paper. You can do this. So now I'm going to use this kind of light green. Draw some grasses. And I could just color with this green right over that shadow and call it a day. Use the broader side. I like it when it kind of gives you that, the artsy look of just the raw edges. Okay, and I could leave it like that, and okay, that's fine, or I could go over with some more gray, or I could go in with this one's not really darker. I need my darker green. Here we go. I think this one might be darker. It's olive green. And I can add some more shadows. I can add some other grasses. Honestly, less is more usually when you're doing projects like this. You're just suggesting. Your brain will fill in the rest. But I mean, look at that. You don't need to spend 5 hours and have 25 markers to get that blend. Just play with what you have. Grays can be your best friend if you have a limited supply. Okay, so we've done probably the 2 most tricky. We've done the brushed copper. We have done the galvanized bucket, and we stamped within it. And now I'm going to show you, let's do patina next, because that is a very similar technique to the brushed copper. We're going to start off with, and I was so organized when I started out, I had all my colors like together. It doesn't last. It doesn't. Does it last for you guys? It doesn't for me. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start off with this light color. This is aqua. And I'm just going to go in and throw this color in very higgledy-piggledy. Okay, this is going to be like what, you know, when you leave something copper out for a long time and it just gets that yummy, gorgeous, rusty, moldy color on it. That's what we're doing. And then we're going to do some of this. This is just like a tan. And a lot of these colors are very you could just use the same colors for all of these. I just tried to organize a little bit and get my colors separated before I went to record, so so I wouldn't spend half the time looking for stuff because nobody wants to see that. And notice my brush strokes here, or marker strokes, I'm streaking them up and down, because when you have something like this, something that's been left outside in the rain, this is how you would color a rusty old vehicle. You would have, things have run down them, water has pooled and sat and run down the edges, and that's why you get that gorgeous texture, that drippy, gorgeous, you know, weathered texture. And I want to make sure that you have that. And then I also want to add this this meadow green. It's just a very light, it's not really a mint, it's more like a moon glow color. Let me just scribble it here so you can see. It's just like a really, really soft jade, almost like tourmaline, like a tourmaline green almost. And I am pretty much coloring over everything just to kind of change the hue, because I want more of that green in there. And now I'm going to go to a nice brown. Let's try this. Is this what I just used? Yeah, as we layer over it, we get those beautiful warmer tones. Because that's another thing you can do. If you have a light color of marker, and like you're doing your poppy, say you're coloring your poppy, and you do one layer, like the middle tone. If you need more of a dark, you need more of a shadow, go right over it. Let it dry, go over it with that same color, and you will get a darker tone on there. So, you know, starting off with limited supplies is a good thing, because you really learn how to use these materials. Instead of just being a material collector, you are an artist. I know you're all artists. Now I feel like I want maybe a little something warmer here. I feel like it needs like a little yellow. So I think I'm going to grab this jasmine. I'm not sure if I actually used that one in the other one, but you go by what your eye sees and what your eye tells you need. And that's just giving it a little bit more of a green look, which I think it needs. Maybe... And I think I might need a little bit darker color. I'm using more colors on this one than I did in the original one, but I think that's fine. And this one I won't actually need to go, that's not the color I was looking for. This one I won't have to go over with the colored pencils, because it's kind of got enough going on as it is, but you totally could if you needed to adjust something. And there you go, you got a patina there. I did this one a little darker, that one a little lighter, but it's the same idea. Now, the smooth silver and smooth gold are done the identical way. We'd use the same color for silver as we did our bucket. Okay, so let's get those colors back again. Oh my gosh, they're in a pile. This is chaos. It's chaos, I tell you. But we're going to do the exact same thing as we did for the brushed copper. But we're going to use the colors from our bucket. So we're going to start with our lightest color. This is Cool Gray 1. Notice how this is open. I'm not going to color in here, but if after I've stamped my images in there, I decide I've got white space, I can do two things. I can color it with green like I did there and fill it in with more foliage, or I can color it with my darkest color that I'm using here, because then that would be the color of the shadowed metal on the inside. So you have both of those options. And again, pause, take notes if you need to. Whatever works for you. Now here you don't have to be as fussy as we were with the brushed copper, because we are going to blend, so we can be pretty quick about this. I'm bringing in that Cool Gray 3. Use whatever gray you have as next, and if you don't have many, don't worry, because we've got colored pencils. And you can go to the office supply store and get colored pencils. You do not have to go invest in Prismacolor or Colorsoft or whatever. Prang makes a really nice colored pencil and is really cheap. And sure, it might fade. All colored pencils fade, actually, so I wouldn't let that stop you. You know, I think the most you'll find is like 48 colors, but they're good, and 48 is probably more than you need for getting started. And I'm going this dark on the edge, just like we did with the brushed copper. Make sure you have a little bit darker underneath that little leg there. And then I am going to blend it all together with my lighter color that I started with. Just be careful not to get too close to the edge, because this is not a blending card. This will bleed. And then I am going to use my clear blender, which has gone on a little trip without me again. It keeps doing that. It keeps wandering off. Oh, I hope all this was in frame. I like to use the chisel edge if I need to get a nice highlight. I'm just going to go down the center with that. Then we can grab our white colored pencil. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so we're gonna do our white and the white pencil in the center. Okay, and then we can grab a white pen and actually add really sharp highlights if you want to. Completely up to you, but it does give it a little bit of a glow. You see that? I'll bring it up a little closer. Last but not least, we're going to do gold, and I apologize for this video being so long, but hopefully you found a lot of good tips from it. And here I have, we're going to do the same exact thing. I'm going to start off with a light color. My lightest shade is Buttercup Yellow. And again, it doesn't have to be this exact color. Use what you have that's closest. And I'm going to prime the surface by coloring it all in this color. And that's gonna, again, what we do this because it lays down ink to make everything blend. My next dark color is called Mustard. It's basically like a really pale kind of Dijon color. And I am bringing that out from the side. I'm bringing it in towards the middle. Leaving a little space in the center where my highlight's going to be. But of course, that little neck of the vase, I make that darker because I want that shadow. Then the next color I have is, what is this called? It's called Caramel. So it's probably very similar to the other caramel I used, but like I've mentioned before, I was trying to be organized and kind of put elastics around my markers so I would know what I was using. And then this color here, we're going to go on the outside. Whoops, we're going to go out here with. Now this I'm going to do a little bit different because I'm going to do kind of a glaze with this color. This is Honey. It's going to really warm up our gold. Now you could keep it a gold like this, but I felt like this gold needs to be a little bit warmer. And of course you could have like a super pale pink over the whole thing if you wanted it to be like a rose gold. You can do, it's just the subtle details that make one metal different from another. You can see the techniques have been very similar. And I'm going to go in the middle, again with this really light color that we started with, and push some of that yellowy gold out. And then I'm going to go in with my clear blender. I actually found it on the first go. Yay me. We're going to put that in the center just to kind of push that pigment around. And then we go in with our colored pencil, and we can either use white or a cream. Something warm is nice just because it keeps with that warm glow. And that was ivory, and I could even go in with something a little bit more yellow if I want to. And warm it up that way. See how that really gives it a nice glow. You know, you have to kind of look at what you have, and you might not need to do much with colored pencils because you have a really big selection. But if you don't, then it's a super great way to make the most out of your supplies and get a beautiful look. I think colored pencil over marker is just a fantastic look, and it's fun to do. It really is fun, and it's you don't have to think, oh no, I've ruined it. You can really bring it back when you do this technique. So even if you have stuff you've colored with markers in the past and you're not happy with them, grab your colored pencils and see if you can fix them up a little bit more. I feel like I would like to have a little bit more white on this front vase, so I am going to add a little bit more in. You could do a shinier highlight with a gel pen like we did on the silver if you want to, but that's completely up to you. And here we can see all of the beautiful metals that we've already colored today. I hope you give it a try. Again, feel free to rewind the video, feel free to pause it where needed, and play with the supplies that you have. We don't all have the same things. We don't all prefer the same brands. Rest assured, with whatever brand you have, you can do this technique. I want to thank you so much for watching. Please check out our sponsor, Rubber Stamp Tapestry, and don't forget to use the coupon code METAL to save 20% off your order of mounted stamps, $10 or more. I'll have all the details in the video description. I will have links to the stamps that I used and some extra tips and tricks as well. And if you go to my blog this Saturday, I will try to make up a few cards with these samples so you can see how they all turned out. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy crafting.